All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. As you could tell from the remarks today on both the floor of the House and the floor of the Senate, the 2020 regular session is functionally over because of Republican obstructionism to help us get our work done here. Republicans have been gone 2 weeks out of a 5-week session. We are unable to complete our business. And it is unfair to Oregonians that Republicans can come back in the last 12 hours and dictate how business gets done. There are many bills that have gone through public process. They deserve a vote on the floor. That is not possible at this point in session, so we have adjourned, and we are now moving on to governing by convening an emergency board meeting on Monday to deal with immediate emergency needs, and starting our planning for a special session to complete the rest of the urgent work from the session that was not done. And that's where we are today. And Mr. President, do you have anything you want to say?
I think the Speaker has done a very nice job outlining the situation. There's also, though, something else that needs to be emphasized. I know the Speaker agrees with me. This institution, anyone who's still in the institution, I think has a responsibility to rebuild this institution, because right now Oregon's legislature doesn't exist. And I said on the podium, if the legislature doesn't exist, the power will go to the governor and the agency heads. And right now, this legislature is not functioning. I never thought I'd see this day because of the idea that, this is going to be the new norm of how you kill a bill. And that's really bad. So part of our work is going to be, not only do we have to go back and look at all those budgets and all the bills. You know all the bills are dead now, right? They have to all be redrafted. All redrafted, everything. And that's all, they've killed them, they've all died. They have. And all the budgets. So the Speaker and I really struggled, and we hope now I'm going to say this, she's Ways and Means, I'm not. We're going to do probably some pretty daring things Monday on e-board. We only got $75 million, right? And we're going to draw down on that. And it's never good to go too far. But we feel because of some of the pain that's involved in this state, we got to do something. And this corona thing, and I met with the president of Oregon Health Science University today, and I'm not showing off, we just don't know enough. But we better be better prepared than not. So we really take this e-board very serious. And I'm just going to say it. I said to Herman, Herman and I talk all the time. I said, I don't need you at the e-board. That's the one time. He says, well, I think I'll come anyway. And the fact is, I appointed people. We also know we got to start looking at a significant special session in Oregon's history, because we need to look at all the things that we didn't get done. Did you hear my talk? I think 99 or 96%, 97, these are all not bipartisan bills, bipartisan things. Trust me. So we got a lot of work to do. Tragically, we didn't get it done in the 5th short session of the legislature. And I think it's also an assault on annual sessions. They've made it very clear to me they don't like annual sessions. Well, every county in the state voted for annual sessions. They like to talk about people. Every one of them. Every one of them. And right now, the legislature is not keeping faith with that vote, because this short session exists for a reason. And we didn't do anything wrong. You're allowed to have budgets and do policy. And it's a bad day for me. A Speaker's stronger than I am. She's less emotional than I am. And the only thing we have in common, we were born in the same place. Well, not quite the same place. So, and I was born a few years earlier than she was. But here's the thing. It's a city of brotherly and sisterly love is where we were born. And right now, I got to feel that I need some love, but that's life. That's all I got. You go ahead and laugh. Yeah. I got to laugh at something.
So any questions?
Can I ask you, so if there's a special session to take up some of the unfinished priorities, assume maybe that's some of the budget stuff too, how is that functionally different in your mind from allowing the Republicans back to take up some of those things anyway? It seems like they could be similar results, but help me understand the thinking there.
Well, this is an unprecedented situation. Special sessions have been used in very narrow circumstances. We have a whole collection of bills that have gone through all the public process. I don't believe we're going to be able to do all those bills. We need to do the budget bills. and make sure we have more reserves in our emergency fund. So there are some straight out budget issues we need to resolve. I think the question is how many of those other bills are going to be able to get done, how many are urgent, how many would go to the 2021 session. What's different about, so your question is how is this different than a regular
If you're
session?
going to handle the budget, in a special session versus the last day of or I don't know exactly.
Well, our goal right now is to govern and make sure the work of the state gets done. Our preference would have been to do it in the regular session that has now on its way to closure. That would have been our preference. And we worked really hard to try to make that happen. I spoke with Leader Drazen daily. I think Senate President spoke with the Senate Republican leader more than daily. We were very serious about this. But as I said in my remarks, we were held hostage by Republican members who left the Senate and the House, supposedly over one bill. But if you notice from their remarks and their statements from this morning, we'll come back on Sunday and do a few bills. It was no longer about 1530. It was about a whole bunch of other bills. And that is not appropriate behavior. And we're tired of being held hostage. And now we're going to move on and try to do as much as we can to govern here in the state. And that is why we're doing the e-board on Monday, because we do need to get to some very urgent issues like flood relief and coronavirus response.
Well, I think, just a minute, I don't think you, my statement is, I'm not interested in doing these bills and these budgets in a one-day special session. No Oregonian has been in more special sessions than Peter, Michael, Coleman, Courtney. I've been in one-day special sessions. I've been in a 34-day special session. I've been in a special session that fails. I made it clear, we're not going to have a one-day special session we come in, because we're looking at all the work that didn't get done. And to just say, do this, do that, you're not listening to me, I don't think. This institution has been dramatically hurt. 4 walkouts. It is going to become a norm. You want to kill a bill? Just walk out. So there was much more than why don't you just come in and do what they say. No, no, no. Next question.
Well, what does a special session look like then?
Well, we're going to put, what do you mean? What does it look like? It'll look like a session. We'll call ourselves in, or the governor will call us in. The legislature can call itself in. Now, if they don't show up, then we're going to have a quorum problem. What it'll look like is several days. This will be a several-day special session. We still have to know what we're doing, or we'll get out of control. So the magnitude of it is, how many days we're going to need to do the work. We'll keep it as few as possible, but I have to say I don't think, Speaker may not agree, it's going to be a one-day special session.
So the governor has released a statement basically saying that she would be open to a special session, but unless legislative leadership can provide her a plan to make it a functional session, that she's not going to do it. What is that plan?
Well, frankly, we've been so focused on trying to manage the current environment we're in for this regular session. That work begins tomorrow. It's clear we're not, we have spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to finish this session. That has been resolved at this point, and now we'll be working on how long it should be, what kind of bills can we take up. And again, as the Senate President said, we can call ourselves back. We hope we'll have the support of the governor to come back. Ultimately, what Oregonians are looking for is how do we get past this and continue to do the work that we're supposed to be doing? And I was impressed by the testimony on the House Rules Committee around the subpoenas. We had former Speaker Pro Tem, former Chair of the Oregon Law Commission, Lane Shetterly, testifying, and the way he talked about the way walkouts have been used over the last year and a half. If we don't change how we do business here in terms of the tools we have to make sure people are showing up for work, that is going to become the norm and the expectation. And that has severe consequences for how the legislature can do its work. And as I said in my remarks, this isn't about anything that was unfair. We have been very clear. There have been tremendous public process, not only on the climate action bill, but on a whole host of bills. And the bottom line is, Republicans didn't show up. They said they would show up too late, and we've only passed 3 bills. And the blame is on them.
Would climate to be on or off the table in the special session?
That is still under consideration.
When would the special session take place? Do you have any notion of this?
I've always said it'll be sometime 30 days plus. We haven't picked a date. We have very busy members of the legislature and their schedules. We also need time to put this together. Speaker and I unilaterally aren't going to put this together. I am going to reach out to the Republicans, and we are going to look at it. But the comprehensive nature of this is huge. Connor said, I just heard recently what the governor said. Be careful, Peter. So this is what I'm going to say. We will know what we're doing, or we're not going in. I say it again. We will know what we're doing. Boy, I can't believe I'm saying that. We will know. So that'll be our plan, Connor. So why don't you check with me, and I'll tell you. I just can't tell you today, but we're not going in half done, half baked. Special sessions, well, after this one, I need to modify, are the hardest of all sessions to do. The hardest. And that's how I approach it. Although this session, I'm very sad, I still think a special session is the hardest of all things to do.
But you can't necessarily control or prevent things from coming up that you didn't plan on, right?
During a special session?
Yes.
Yeah, you can. You say no. Trust me, presiding officers in special sessions better get ready, because everybody sometimes has too much time. So I'm just going to say, yes, you can control it. Yes, you can.
President Courtney, you had said on the floor that this dysfunction or the way the session went means that executive action is going to be more important. The governor's going to have to take executive action on carbon. So that means you guys would not be trying to introduce cap and trade during a special session.
I'm not going to say that to you. Everything you said was correct. Is an example of where power now is moving to the executive branch, not just playing games with that statement, regardless of who's governor. But where we are on that issue, I'm not going to say, because the Speaker and I, this has been a very difficult time. I'm not complaining, I asked for the job. So you're asking me a question I need more to think about more and work with other people before I give you the kind of answer that I want you to put in an article in the Oregonian.
Speaker, you mentioned a kill list in your speech. Was there one floated for you? Did they give you a list of bills they wanted dead, or any deal making like that?
No. Every daily conversation with Leader Drazen was only about referring Senate Bill 1530 to the voters. However, we are very well aware that lobbyists and Republican supporters were trying to come up with that list of bills that they can say, well, we'll come back if you do X, Y, and Z, in addition to referring Senate Bill 1530. So did I ever receive one? No. Was it out there? Absolutely.
Is there anybody over here want to ask a question? Because they're over there. I like you a lot. I like you a lot. But every one of you has asked a question. Yes, please.
How are you going to prevent this from happening again with the Republicans? Are they going to face any other consequences?
Well, look, I said in the podium, we are going to have to either through constitutional amendment or law changes or rules dramatically change this quorum thing. That's got to happen. And whether or not the consequence, I don't want to get into that. I just want to help this institution. And that's what I've said, is that is as important issue now as all the other things you're talking about. The Speaker may not agree with that. But to me, an important issue facing my state is we have got to redo the legislative branch.
Are any Republicans going to be removed from committee assignments or anything like that? I know that Smith was removed from that subcommittee. Anything like that?
Well, the reason that Representative Smith lost his gavel, because I have expectations about chairs in our side of the building, and he was I've been very clear with my chairs. You are a part of leadership, and the privilege that you have as being a chair, and you need to show up for work. And that's the reason that he no longer is chairing the subcommittee of General Government and Ways and Means. He's aware of that. He recognizes that. He understands why that action was taken. At this point, I want to move on to where we go next. I do think we will have to find opportunities to rebuild trust with our Republican colleagues. They've broken a lot of trust in the actions they've taken. And nonetheless, we need to come back and govern. And we do need to come back and finish some very important bills. And so we're going to try to figure that out.
Have you had it? Oh, you go ahead.
Sorry, Speaker, I know Drazen said that, the GOP would come back Sunday, possibly just to pass those priority funding bills. Are you even counting on that happening then at this point, or we just don't know?
It can't happen at this point. We adjourned to 11:59 on Sunday night. I did call her after her statement was made and said, just to be clear, are you willing to come back, suspend the rules, and do the work you need to do so we can consider all bills that are now available to us? And her answer was no. So I think she was selectively saying what she would do. The only offer on the table was come back and do your job and do everything that's out there. And they said no. So that's why we finished our business.
One concern that's come up a lot is about the Oregonians and what they deserve out of all of this and these bills that will affect them directly. My question, I guess, is a lot of people are asking us, why not meet with them on Sunday, at least get some of them through and not kill all of these bills? It feels to them, I'm hearing, like throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Well, I think one of the things that's really important to us is that we have good process when all the bills are considered. Now, I think people had some unrealistic expectations about what happened at the end of the 2019 session and how many bills moved so quickly in the last couple days. If you recall, there was no floor debate, particularly on the Senate side, and all those bills getting done. And that was not as many bills as we have now sitting in backlog. And part of the reason the House is backlogged is because the House Republicans refused to lift the requirement of reading bills, even when the bills ended up being voted on unanimously. So we had a really large backlog. We would have had to come back yesterday for us to complete all the bills without any kind of help from changing the rules that we need. I don't think it's appropriate for us to come back and do a handful of bills and do them so poorly and have no public process just because the Republicans have dictated the terms of the return. So what we will do is, everything's over, we're going to come back, look at the bills. Some bills can wait till next session. Some will have to get done in a special session, and we definitely have to get back to the budgets. So we are committed to transparency and process. That's a commitment that we both share, and it's just not possible given the timelines the Republicans are dictating, and so therefore we'll have to do something different, which is what we're going to do. Come back to the E-Board on Monday, start working on a special session. And as it relates to climate action, we need climate action in 2020. We are waiting to see the final executive order from the governor, and that will determine where we go forward from there.
Well, if we came back on Sunday, the first motion made on the Senate floor would be by the Democrats asking me to suspend the rules so that we could take up these bills, because we can't get near them. Today was the last day. I hope you understand the first, second, third reading. Okay. They'd say no. Oh, yes, they would. Then another motion would be made by Democrats that we extend the session 5 days. 5 days, because if we did that, then we wouldn't have to worry about suspension of rules, blah, blah, blah. Guess what? That takes 2/3 vote. That would fail. Now, how do you think we'd feel about each other on the floor? Now, I'm just telling you, it's very easy to say, why don't you just come in this last day and we'll all like each other and get along. There are procedural motions, other motions. I guarantee you that would happen. All of a sudden, it'd be 12 o'clock and then 1 o'clock. So I got to tell you, in terms from a human nature standpoint, I don't think it would work. I'm considered an accommodator. But how much do I accommodate when you constantly leave the chambers, you constantly hold the legislature and major legislature hostage? Where do I make a stand and say, enough of it? I owe that to Oregon's voters. Most important right now, I have got to figure out a way to make the legislature work for all Oregon when increasingly some legislators don't have my view. So that is my answer to that question.
How much money are you planning to allocate through the emergency board on Monday?
I don't think we know the answer to that. We're still working with legislative fiscal. We want to be cautious. I think there's about $75 million is what's in the emergency fund right now. We're going to be cautious not to go too deep into that, but we won't know until Monday. We're soon Monday morning for the meeting.
We're very worried about that. We're very worried about that because we could readily get caught up and spending it all. That would be disastrous. So I'm just saying, $75 million is not a lot of dollars, but because of the emergency nature of where we're going to spend it, we're going to spend money in critical areas. We're not going to spend as much money as they're asking us. But the $75 million is haunting me right down the speaker, because that's not a lot of money.
Our plan is to do the $12 million flood relief package. That was announced by the governor last week, so that is one number we do know.
If there is in any situation where that $75 million from the E-Board has to be run down scarily low, have there been other talks of contingency for what happens if there's a bad wildfire season?
Well, our goal is to come in special session. At minimum, we will, as you could tell from the budget documents that came out a couple days ago, there were plans to put additional money in the emergency fund for caseload overruns and other things in OHA and DHS for wildfire. I would assume that we would follow most of the plans in those budget bills and put more money in the E-fund. At minimum, we need to do that, and we can call ourselves back for that.
So there was a lot of talk about constitutional crisis today. And also a lot of things floated about constitutional amendments for fixing the quorum issue, Is that something you all would want on the table for a special session, a referral for one of those options for sort of limiting the ability of a minority party to do this?
If not in the special session, probably next year. I mean, there's a lot of interest from people who are seeing their bills die that this should not become the norm. And in terms of the constitutional crisis, I think what's more fundamental, that's more worrisome to me, is our Constitution says there is one job for a legislator, really. I know everyone thinks that sitting at your computer in some motel while you're on the lam is doing your work. It's not. We have one constitutional duty, and that is to vote. Even when we even have to declare a conflict of interest, we are required to vote. That is our one job. The constitutional crisis is members in this body, elected by people around the state, took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States and of Oregon, and they have broken their oath by not doing their job. And I don't think we should make light of that or ignore that. That is the constitutional crisis. And I know for a fact, or at least I've heard in rumor, maybe that's a better way to say it, that when Republicans have been recruiting for new people to run, filing day is on Tuesday, I have heard rumors that people are being asked, would you walk out? That has become a litmus test for recruitment of Republican colleagues in this state. Republican candidates are being asked, we'll support you if you're willing to walk out again. And if you're not, we're going to get someone more conservative of you. That is a problem. That is a constitutional crisis. When you run for office, you take an oath, you show up and vote. There are many ways to make yourself heard in the minority. But you must come and do your job.
We have spoken, this needs to be fixed before the next general session. I'm just going to tell you that. And one of the things that we've talked about recently, at least my individuals that is that you have a separate special session to do this, maybe in September, because it's so serious. Now, I realize we could maybe run into problems with it, but we need to do something before the next general session, 2021. I'm not concerned about this walking out situation.
To your knowledge, has this ever happened in Oregon before, that you all had to, adjourn until the deadline because there was a walkout?
Well, in the House, the Democrats walked out in 2001 over a redistricting plan for a week, and I don't know why that week killed the bill. So I'm not that familiar. I was not in the House, I was in the Senate, and don't ask me how I feel about that. I don't like walkouts. The fact is, I don't think, and I'm going to be careful, this is 4 walkouts in a very short period of time, substantial. I'd like to think that my state in its history has never had to endure this before. I can't guarantee you that. I just think this is very unusual. I don't think this has happened in my state. I'm not sure this could happen to a lot of other states, but I guarantee you, other states are going to start copying this, and that's how dangerous this is.
Well, and I think just now that we have deadlines for annual sessions,
Right,
that creates
right.
a new dynamic. My understanding, just listening from Lane Shetterly in our committee today, was back in 2001, there was a deadline as it related to redistricting plan, but it was not a deadline for the end of session. But we have those deadlines now, and that has been weaponized and become a tool of people who think they can kill things by, just not showing up for work.
Have either of you spoken to any Republicans since you floated this idea of a special session, and how do you plan to rebuild trust with them?
Well, Herman Birchak, I love you, Herman. He called me 5 minutes to 2, and we were kidding each other. So he said, special session. He knows I'm talking about. He knows about it. We talked, and we did. I mean, that's how recently I've talked to Herman Birchak. I think I talked to him twice yesterday and twice today, as recently as almost just before 2 o'clock. And we did discuss a special session.
I've not spoken with anyone in the Republican caucus since the floor. I've been talking with my own caucus. I think what I would say to your question is, what are Republicans going to do to rebuild trust with us? We haven't broken trust of the voters. The Republicans have.
Well, you are in the majority. You're the speaker. You oversee the entire chamber, so that also does fall on you?
I am taking that job very seriously. I'm not walking away or waiting for them to come to me. But I do think it's incumbent upon them to think about what happened and how they're going to rebuild trust as we move forward with us as individuals. Nonetheless, my job is to govern. My job is to bring members back and continue to work on the priorities of the state. We're going to do that. My door has always been open. Everybody has my cell phone. I'm going to be proactive. I hope they will take my calls, and we got to figure this out. So our work starts tomorrow, and I'm not shying away from that.
I don't know if you aimed that at me, but I still have Republican chairs. Come on. I have talked to Herman almost daily. So I've attempted to keep the channels open. I'll just leave it at that. I think I've worked very hard on that. I'm very much a Democrat, but I also know what it is to be in the minority. I was in the minority in the House and the Senate, so I know all about that. And I've told the Speaker, we battle something which is as big a change in the legislature in its history. We battled something and begged the Republicans not to pass it, and they passed it. Even the late Vicatia did. That went on. It was a 10-hour battle on the floor. We never left the floor as a caucus leader. Do you know what it was? Supermajority. 18 here, 36 there. It's supermajority. They did it. So we couldn't do anything without a supermajority. And we fought it to the death, and they beat us because they had the numbers. So, I've been in a situation where you're in the minority, they're running over you. What do? You fight to the death on the floor. Sorry, that's how I think. I may be all alone.
Are we in this situation today because, number one, the governor last year gave in and did a deal on vaccines and gun control, and then two, Senate President, you announced that you didn't have the votes and brought Republicans back that way last year?
Well, I really wish you hadn't brought that up, because that was a very bad day for me when I stood up on the floor. I don't bluff votes, and this thing was bad, and I really wanted to get people back. And I did say, we do not have the votes, and that's not going to change. And I caught heck from that from my side. Why did you say that? I said, because that's the situation. So I did, and I don't know. You don't have to decide whether that contributed to this or not. I also said this time, we do have the votes. I did say it, 2 different places, and that is not going to change. So there's 17 members of the Senate, 17, that want to do this. So I don't know. I'll always second guess myself, Hillary. I don't know. Sometimes I talk very directly and openly, as the Speaker says, and maybe, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't.
Last question, please.
Sorry, go ahead.
So can you speak a little bit more? I know, Speaker, you pursued, I think the numbers changed, but $120 million to $140 million for housing and homeless issues, which obviously is well over the $75 million. So any thoughts on that issue? And just...
Well, I'm really frustrated about our inability to move forward on the housing and homelessness package. It did end up being $120 million in a variety of different approaches, and particularly $45 million for additional shelter capacity with House Bill 4001. We'll have to come back on that in a short session. We don't have the resources in the ending fund, the emergency fund, to do that. And it's not just the money. E-Board can't do policy. That bill needed to pass because it gave superseding authority to local government to build more additional shelter space. So we need the bill. That can only happen in a special session.
That's a sucker punch in my stomach, because I'd forgotten that really maybe that's the greatest tragedy of this, what just happened. Let me give you an example. I live in Salem. Been there for 50 years. We have a homeless crisis that's really bad, featured on Channel 8. It's really, really bad. And I can tell you, my city and my county can't do it. They need the help of the state. I had millions of dollars in the budget, Speaker helped me get it, there, to allow them to get the shelters and everything they needed. I got nothing today. I got nothing. And this thing in Salem is very, very bad. No, it is really, I'm not trying to be melodramatic with you. And my city and my county is begging me. They don't have the resources to do these things. So if you want to know a real tragedy, it's the loss of the homeless money, which is needed everywhere in this state.
And I guess I want to have the last comment here and say that I want to assure Oregonians that despite the setback that was caused by the Republican walkout, we're going to regroup, come back, and work on those very immediate and urgent issues. our job is to govern, our job is to come back and continue to do work. We're going to get past this, and Oregonians are counting on us to make sure important resources get out into their communities on a whole host of issues. So we are going to try to get back and solve this as soon as we can, because that's our job.
And to follow up, I will work with Republicans, anybody. But this walking out has to stop. Shutting down government has to end.
I have to do one follow-up though on the homeless. Coronavirus, the homeless are particularly vulnerable to not only getting coronavirus,
Yep.
but to spreading it. You know, they have no isolation places.
I get it.
What about the timing of that? This outbreak is happening and your housing bill to provide shelters for the homeless happening at the same time. Perfect storm.
Well, the e-board will take up a coronavirus response package, and some of that, according to the executive, has said they want to make sure we have additional options for folks who are working with most vulnerable Oregonians, including folks who are unsheltered. So that will be part of some of the dollars we hope to release on Monday at the e-board. So, thank you. Thanks very much.